go.
Oh yeah, let me go get the doc here. Put it in chat. Feel free to put your. Let me first update the thing here. Feel free to put your attendance in the notes. I guess we can probably get started, right?
Good.
Do you want me to take it or?
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. So yeah, we can get started. So just as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and actually being live streamed to YouTube and will be available after the meeting as well. Also, this meeting falls under the CNCF and security tags code of conduct. So just be aware of that as well. Okay. I think, have you attended this meeting before, Jeremy? I don't remember.
Yep, I was here 2 weeks ago.
Okay, yeah. Just wanted to double check just in case, because I couldn't remember if you introduced yourself. Okay. So before we get started with some of the other updates, I know that there was the open source summit, and wanted to know if you know folks who went, if there was anything that they found really interesting that's applicable to this group, any good talks, any interesting follow-ups, and those sorts of things.
I was there, and I think Brandon was there. Other Brandon was there as well. I think for me, I mean, kind of like I think the folks, there was a couple talks from folks on like the Go side with the salsa building and stuff like that. That's definitely very cool. One of the talks that I found very interesting was so there was one by, I think, Scribe, where they were trying to do salsa based on output of logs, which was interesting, but I think there's some open questions, like maybe some of the, like, I don't know whether they can directly be trusted or what the model that is. But definitely like trying to get the salsa provenance from the logs is from like CI logs is a interesting angle. Other than that, I think there's a lot of interesting discussions with like Vex. There were a bunch of like SBOM talks also, like Daggerbot, which is a like I can't remember which healthcare company, but basically they have like a they're launching like a SBOM kind of solution for that they're using internally for their medical stuff.
Yeah, I think that was a New York Presbyterian Hospital. Was that one? The Dagger board.
Oh yeah. Totally forgot you were there as well. Blanking.
Yeah. I still need to see Brandon, the other Brandons, or is it who's number one Brandon? Who's number two Brandon?
I can just go by B-Mitch like I usually do, and that solves all problems.
Yeah, so B-Mitch's talk, I think I missed it because I think my talk was right after that, but I definitely want to check out his. I think coming up. So whenever that gets published, B-Mitch is let us know so that I can take a look. And it was. Do you want to give a quick tagline for your thing? I forget what it was.
My tagline was really pushing for using OCI layout a lot more, and there's a lot of work across the whole ecosystem for how we support that. But if we can get the support across the ecosystem, and there's workarounds while we're waiting for people to do things, so it's not something you have to wait on. And the talk goes into some of that. It means that you're no longer, when you build your image or something like that in your like Tecton or pick your CI system and ship it up to the registry, you're not immediately re-downloading all those layers to generate the SBOM and then re-downloading all those layers to do the vulnerability scan. You can keep all that stuff local within the pipeline on the file system. And then once you're all done and then you figure you're finished, sign at the end, then you push your image up with the SBOM with your signature all as one unit, and people can pull that down. There's never this in-between state, and it's not a whole lot of back and forth networking.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. The other ones that I saw were related to Keylime. So I think this is basically the updates that they're making to Keylime. They're looking to integrate with Spire and all that kind of stuff. So looks like it's going in the right direction. So it was mostly just an update talk. It wasn't anything else like in terms of a demo or anything. And then the other one that I attended was related to chaos engineering. And basically it was again just like a general outline on how it should be approached. Not in terms of like any tools or anything else like that. It's just how companies are kind of approaching chaos engineering and how are they, how are they going about it in terms of like, what the environments are they using, what kind of testing are they doing, and how it should be all done and recorded and stuff.
Yeah, I guess to add to that also, shameless plug for Path and I's presentation on Tecton stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to catching up on that one myself, because since I was just before that, all the OCI people pulled kind of gathered aside, and so I missed parts as well. So I'll be looking forward to check that out. Stuff that I saw that was interesting. There was one talking about on Git repos, talking about kind of a potential exploit out there with GitHub Actions where it expands user data directly into a script that you're running within a GitHub action. That's not always the best case for having random input just executed directly on your runner. And so that was interesting to see that and just think through the various implications of how that applies, not just to GitHub Actions, but all kinds of other CI pipelines and how that can be a vulnerability of CI pipelines. And then the other one was that really got my attention was seeing Vex. So that was being pushed out by Dr. Friedman out there. And Vex is kind of like the inverse of a vulnerability scan where you say, I've got all these vulnerability reports of potential CVEs that apply to all this stuff that we've got running, but there are a lot of cases where they don't apply. And so getting those captured so that you can still deploy this pipeline out to production and not be vulnerable, having some kind of system out there that can check that and report that for you is nice. So looking at that one, thinking that's something else I need to follow up on.
That reminded me of another talk. I think there's one called Vulntology. This was from NIST, and it was kind of like trying to define a ontology for how to describe describe vulnerabilities that can be exploited as kind of like a data model that's like I guess more further looking to the future.
And I see Marina asking, the recordings, I think we get pushed up onto the Linux Foundation's YouTube channel, but it's probably going to be another week or so.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you're all getting me very excited about listening to them. So
Cool. Anybody else head out there, find anything interesting? Otherwise, we can move
I
on.
just really like seeing all these people in person.
Oh, yeah.
Eric, you jumped in here late. We were talking about Open Source Summit last week. Anything that caught your attention from that?
Well, I still haven't finished it, but your talk was interesting. Not to blow smoke, but Parth, your demo was awesome. And I think I mentioned on another call that we were on that the Git bomb talk also was very good.
Yeah, I second I think it was just meeting all the people out there was probably the highlight. Just talking to everybody in person and just chatting about random stuff and about supply chain security in general. So it's good.
I'm disappointed I missed out, but I'll be there at KubeCon. Okay, so we could probably move on here to, so are there any other updates from folks regarding sort of anything regarding sort of supply chain security? I have a small one, so I'll just go right now, which is spoke to some of the folks at, sorry, I spoke to Daniel from Cider Security. They're the ones who do the CI/CD GOAT and the top 10 CI/CD risks. And they were interested in two things. One is in demoing stuff like the CI/CD GOAT and the top 10 CI/CD risks and seeing how they can maybe start joining some of the open source stuff that we're doing over here. For most of them, I should say it's a little, depending on when it is, it's a little inconvenient when these meetings are, whatever, because they're all out in Israel. But they seem to be indicate that, they'd still be down to sort of demo, even if it's off hours and whatnot. They also sounded like they were potentially interested in, even providing stuff like, and I don't know what the flow for this is, but they said they were even down for providing, access to some of their closed source tools for free to the CNCF for open source projects as well. But yeah, they seem to be interested in joining some of these things. So I've been forwarding on some of that stuff and trying to get a meeting scheduled for some of that CI/CD stuff. Separately, I don't know. I know a lot of folks on the call were at yesterday's security tag meeting, but not everybody, but they showed a really cool confidential containers. I don't remember exactly. I know the project is literally called Confidential Containers. I'm blanking on the names of the folks who that demoed or not.
It was Samuel and James McGowan, Samuel Ortiz and James McGowan.
Cool. But they showed off some stuff that I think we might be just sort of interested in and around running containers in trusted execution environments. So that's like secure enclave, that kind of thing. There seem to be some open questions on exactly how it all sort of works. But, I know in a previous life, I worked at a place where we wanted to, this was early on, it wasn't ready yet, but we definitely wanted to sort of adopt, like for our most secure builds, right? Because there's always a cost to using stuff like trusted execution environments, building building in a on top of TEE is to really make sure that nobody's messing with your stuff, nothing's coming in from the outside and so on. Could be potentially an interesting thing to explore. But yeah, Anybody else?
Yeah, nothing else this week for me.
All right. Brendan, do we want to go through the proposals again?
So I wasn't here last week. Where are we on the survey? I think that's like almost in the
Oh,
good
right.
shape that we can send it
Yep.
out.
Yep. That's a good one. So as a reminder here, the survey is, pull up the issue. So it was this one. So largely, I believe everybody, outside of a couple of, you remember, I just sort of took some of those things. I believe we just wanted to, I think actually from the agenda from last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago, we have a bunch of notes there, so we probably just need to now turn it into an actual survey, a form, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think last 2 weeks ago, basically, we kind of discussed all the questions. We went through each one in detail, and we just and those are the notes basically that we have in the agenda piece. So I think now it's just taking that and going forward with it. So I think everybody agreed that it's good, and these are the questions that we should go forward with.
Yeah. So the process for that would be we should put all the questions in a Google Doc, and then have all the response of what kind of responses we want, and then we can open up a ticket in service desk, and the CNCF will create a Survey Monkey kind of thing to send out.
Cool. So I could probably even start some of that right now. So let me get a doc set up here. Right. So have it open to the world. We'll post it in here. We'll also post it in the notes here in a second. Where did this go? All right, so for now, I'm just going to take pretty much the discussion we had from last meeting and just copy paste it in there, and then we can probably just start to modify it. All right. Let me share my screen. Let me just start putting stuff down. for the actual questions. Okay, let me try and move this out of the way. Should we just go through this? So, does that sound reasonable, or? All right, cool. So as the first question seem reasonable, right? What are the most immediate concerns you want to address with supply chain security? And then we wanted to turn this into sort of multiple choice specifically. And so actually, I think some of this might be in the GitHub issue. So let me double check. Let me just go. Most of this information's in the issue, but I remember we discussion here.
Yeah, I think you missed it. I think it was at the bottom.
Was it at the bottom?
Right there.
Oh, so this is
pods. If you scroll up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, right there.
What is the, is provenance collection referred to like salsa stuff?
Yeah. So let me sort of read through it.
Okay.
Yeah. I also think so. We should probably just highlight at the top here. I don't know why it still thinks I'm in the UK. All right, so let me just put that there for now, but just to make sure that it's understood here that like the immediate concerns, it's like you're coming at this from the context of, hey, I'm doing security for an organization or I'm running a project or something like that. So that SBOM management would sort of deal with, hey, how do I manage SBOMs coming out of my project, or how do I manage SBOMs that are coming in from the dependencies for my project, that kind of thing. And we should probably make sure that that's crystal clear to folks, so that the questions are unambiguous. Okay, so provenance collection, yeah, that's kind of where. Do we want to kind of say maybe I almost want to say this is kind of like more, even though provenance is important, it's kind of like the thing that I think we want to sort of convey to folks is that it's about the chain of custody piece. It's like yes, I can tell you that this source code led to this artifact because I can see all the steps in between where those things were handed off and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like that there is like for each of these, well, not each of these, but like for most of these, there's like two angles to it. One of them is like the producing, and one of them is like the consuming.
Yep.
So I wonder whether it's like, should we split them into?
Yeah, we could do that. We could also, because like the idea that we were thinking was that this is not necessarily even multiple choice. It was going to be like checkboxes, I think. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, like somebody could click SBOM management, CI/CD, could click all of them plus other but for some folks, I know that like they're just like, hey, I just want to do the SBOM piece because that's what I've been told. So that's the most immediate concern for me. But yeah, I think that's probably makes sense. So probably something like I'll just put this for each of these just so, well, so this one is probably not that. Does that make sense?
Sounds good. Do we want to also add things about like where something like scorecards or dependent bot, but where do you see that falling under?
Yeah, that could be also just literally just another thing here. Let's put that right here. So
Repository health or code health?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yep, I was gonna say project / repository health. I do feel like we probably need to.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's kind of like,
Yeah, because like I'm also so there, yeah. So the some of these things are going to be things that folks have some understanding of. A lot of it is just going to be no. They're not going to have any understanding of, because I mean I think based on from what I've heard, even from the open source summit, a lot of folks just either supply chain security became a buzzword, or a lot of folks still don't really know what an SBOM is. CI/CD is probably relatively well known, but a lot of the other things like scorecard and dependency tracking and yada yada is might still be relatively new for folks, where we might want to include some additional stuff there.
yeah, I think it's better for us to be more specific.
Yep.
Like say like, like have dependency alerts, like dependent bot, because I can see like a project that is concerned about dependency may be fine if just saying like dependent bot is like good enough, or GitHub scans are good, GitHub security is good enough for me, and I don't necessarily need an SBOM.
Yep.
I also think that there's some ambiguity behind pipeline hardening, which is like, is this hardening the pipeline or just like running?
How hard to, yeah.
Yeah, or like doing static analysis on my code.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, because I know that, and so maybe we even just sort of simplify it in some way, because like the idea I think behind a lot of this, right, was we don't want to overwhelm folks with like a million different options, and we also recognize that a lot of things just today fall under certain categories, even if they don't really fit there, like they just today fall under those things. Because like when we start to kind of go in, it's more of like from my based on sort of the discussions we had, it sounded like what we're trying to do is kind of get like a finger on the pulse of what folks are actually worried about, what are folks, and so maybe we're just not there yet, and we should probably take a step back. I don't know, but I mean, we obviously want to get this out sooner rather than later. But the thing that I'm thinking is, right, what is the goal of the survey, right? The goal of the survey is to just get a finger on the pulse of where people are today when they're thinking about supply chain security. Some folks are not thinking about it at all. Some folks are thinking about it purely from a compliance standpoint. Somebody told me I had to generate SBOM, so that's what I'm doing. And some people are like, no, it is part of my overall security engineering methodologies that I'm using at the organization, right? We're looking, hey, yesterday we were doing attack trees that mostly looked like somebody steals credentials, gets onto, a developer workstation and they hop into some server which has access to production, right? Whereas in the future, whereas a lot of people are starting to do a thing of, oh, somebody gets into a developer workstation, pushes a bad commit that doesn't get tracked, yada, yada, and then all of a sudden everything's broken. And so some of these are, I think, the things that like we want to kind of help understand is one is almost like what mature, there's probably, and I don't want to get it too enterprisey here, but like obviously there's some level of journey of person who does not care whatsoever about supply chain attacks and just security engineering in general, to the folks all the way on the other end who are like, I only run my builds in air-gapped environments and trusted execution, environments, and so on and so forth. And there's a big sort of range between there. And I think one of the things that we're trying to kind of understand with this survey is to say, okay, generally within the CNCF, where are projects and sub-organizations and related things today?
I think one of the things that came up is that we do need to give some kind of an intro to the survey. So maybe before we start going into the questions, right? Maybe just like, hey, here's a link to the actual, the CNCF best practices, or maybe just giving a quick overview of it, right? Linking the actual document because it's massive. Maybe giving a quick short intro, like, hey, this is what this is. This is what we're trying to talk about, right? So that sets their point of view or state of mind as they're answering these questions. I think so. I think that's definitely needed, and that might help us with some of these. How are they interpreting these questions? I think that would help that issue out. It's like, is it open to interpretation? Not anymore, because we gave them some kind of a primer for it. So
cool. Who wants to take that?
I can take it. It's fine. I'll do that. So I'll put it in here that we need it.
And so the thing that I've been using for, just so obviously the CNCF can take a different view than Mike specifically, but I remember based on some of the stuff that we had sort of discussed in the best practices guide and some of the other things, if somebody were to ask me what is the one sentence description of what supply chain security is, supply chain security is anything, or sorry, a supply chain attack, I should just say, is anything that affects the production or consumption of software. I actually generalize it even further, anything that the production or consumption of systems. So that could be also infrastructure and other things. So if you mess with a dependency of a thing, but that could be potentially more broad than the CNCF wants to go. But because I do think that's also a big problem still is you talk to 10 different people what supply chain security is, you get 10 different answers. And from what I even heard from a lot of folks at OSS is that a lot of folks are like, great, they've just sort of repositioned software composition analysis as all of supply chain security, where it's like, no, that's one part of it. But anyway.
I put in a bunch of. I tried to rephrase it in a way that maybe seems to capture some of the things you're talking about in a way that's more directed at the project.
Yeah. What do other folks think about this?
And when you said that people were trying to turn SCA into supply chain, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I don't understand how what you meant there. What are they saying?
So I believe Parth, you were there in person. but so you might be able to talk about this a little bit further. The only thing I just heard from a few folks was just generally a lot of companies obviously just sort of saying, hey, I generate SBOMs. We're holistic supply chain security. And a lot of people are like, great, I have an SBOM. My supply chain is secured or whatever it is. And the same thing kind of goes with sort of like your sort of vulnerability scan of like, hey, we did a vulnerability scan. That's all we need to do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think based on the vendor floor, basically, if you kind of walked around there, a lot of things were like, oh, we do supply chain security, but it was more just like, they were doing scanning and all those kind of tools. They're providing some kind of a SaaS software, SaaS offering for some kind of a vulnerability scanner that scanned their dependencies as they were coming in and all those kind of things. And then they're like, oh, we're good with our supply chain security. So I think that's they were not approaching it in a holistic sense. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and to be clear, it is part of the supply chain security picture, but yeah.
If my booth was saying that, please come talk to me privately. I'd like to have a discussion with them.
No, I don't believe that was the case.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So do folks have other thoughts around what Brendan put down for like a rewording of this? Apologize if anybody's doing any of the emotes or anything like that. I can't actually see.
You're good.
All right, cool. So yeah, those make sense to me. And so we can probably just, do you want to just replace them with the other ones? Yeah. Okay, and now we can do the next question, and let's kind of go through these quickly. I assume this is probably like a 1 to 10 sort of scale. Like how much do you rely on external open source? I'll just put software versus licensed or proprietary. I can't tell actually if this question was intended to be for securing your supply chain, or how much do you rely on?
I can't remember what the motivation of this question was.
Yeah, let me double check if somehow in the copying pasting it got reworded or something. Oh yeah, so it does seem like it was originally intended to be kind of more of the tools. What tools do you use? Licensed or proprietary tooling for sure.
Would it be helpful to just ask them to list it?
Sorry, was that?
Like just ask for a list of the tooling? Or like give options like Travis, Settle CI, GitHub Actions. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that could definitely work.
It is possible people won't know off the top of their heads whether stuff is proprietary.
That's very true.
Yeah, yeah. So should we just say list the tools? Or list the common tools, something like that. because I think there's
Sounds
going to
good.
be inevitably, like, even if we say like, oh, what CI/CD server do you use? There's like, I mean, there's Jenkins and then 20 other semi-popular ones. And I'm sure we can kind of do some stuff to, yeah, we're coming. What tools do you use? Kind of anybody who wants to workshop that sentence, go wild. Let me go in and also start looking at the next question. So the context should have already been.
I think it should be the other one, right? It should be what motivates you, I think, is a better question.
Yeah.
And you can just say customer requirements, compliance.
Yep.
Or hype.
Yep.
If folks want to start adding options to number 2, I think that would be good as well.
All right. All right. Let's see what else. I guess for 2, we can put.
Oh, that's a political minefield right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I almost wanted to say SBOM generator tools for the languages you use. Actually, I'll just do that because since a lot of tools support both, and I don't want to. That's the one, right? Yeah. Like these are just sort of examples here, but I know I'm trying to think of like where we want, because obviously there's a lot of areas we can. I mean, we could just say, for example, SolarCube, right? Like linting of code is also a piece of the puzzle as well, and that would sort of lead to other things like build packs, right? AppCo and similar.
Sorry, I get distracted. Thanks for whoever thought of my company.
Well, no, I mean, like,
I don't want to seem.
yeah, no, I figured, but actually, you know, I do think there's a lot of interesting just stuff in the space. I just don't know where we want to bound it.
Yep. This is a hard
So
one. There's new ones every freaking conference. There's like 3 more booths with new tools coming up.
So I would say I think definitely we should only list open source ones. Just because the fact that we are listing something from a CNCF perspective, that means we think it's popular. So yeah.
Well, we then we pull Sneak because we're not open source. But Travis and Circle aren't either, really.
Yeah, it's kind of like yeah, it's a tricky thing because it's like so ingrained. It's kind of like GitHub, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Do we want to then just state, as opposed to specific things, we could say CI tools, CD tools, and just avoid the whole situation?
Yeah, I think that might be a little easier. I think the Jenkins thing was initially my concern, was just saying, are they open source or proprietary, right? Because I think there's some edge cases or people that at least, it'd be hard to answer that question for.
Yeah, because I mean, even among, like, you know, you have Tecton, Red Hat has pipelines, which is the sort of more, you know, is a closed source version of it. There are tools in here that are open source, but based on the licensing, maybe the CNCF, you know, they'd be considered a little less open than others. Yeah, I'm okay with saying, like, specifically just calling out CI.
Or we make it back to like a list, right, where they write in like freeform text box what the CI tools are using and stuff.
Yeah, we could do that. CI and CD tools, and then SBOM generation tools. Are there any other categories that folks think are part of this? I mean, I think there's one, which is, but I don't know how widely this sort of thing is used outside of a couple of areas.
How about source control tools?
Okay, so yeah.
No, I mean I feel like that's separate from provenance too. So yeah.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Just like the GitHub, get that stuff.
I'll just leave source code control.
We want to open the can of worms here of runtime validation or admission control or anything like that in this area.
Yeah, I think some of these, like I almost kind of like, you bring up a good point. Like I think, like for example, provenance generator tools are probably not as widely used, and then runtime admission tools are also of a similar sort of vein, right? Like you have some level of policy. Yeah.
Well, so I think the question is like a lot of these projects are projects that, like a lot of the CNCF projects are, like by definition, just
Yeah.
code projects, right? They're not really running anything directly. So I don't know how that would fit.
Yeah.
Maybe something more along the lines of enforcement or governance or some tools.
So
I would think that would be part of securing and orchestrating my supply chain, is making sure that I'm not running something that wasn't secured or.
Yep.
So you're talking about the build emission, the build runtime emission, right?
Right, I'm talking more about don't allow somebody to run something that hasn't been vetted.
In the build pipeline.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost think like with some of this stuff, like what we all had also discussed afterwards was also that some of this stuff, like I know one of the things that was brought up, I think last meeting was eventually we want to probably then tweak this survey to also be a survey for just end users, right? Like we can send this to the end users as well. And then kind of go from there. But yeah, but let's for now try and get through the questions. Oh, it looks like yes. So thanks.
Yeah, copy the questions up there. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. What impact and I know we only have a few minutes here, so let's try and get through these. What impact have supply chain incidents, including vulnerability compromise, blah, 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 had on your organization or project? Yeah, do we want to also sort of maybe put in just general sort of cost measures, like by cost, I'm just talking more about time, you know, or that sort of thing, just so that folks understand, like, oh, for me, it was actually, I guess maybe even just keeping it general might be good, because then it just says, like, for certain projects with low resources, a small supply chain issue could actually be a huge problem compared to, you know, like, I'm just saying, like, you know, if it's like a 2-person little project, it's probably gonna view even a small supply chain attack as potentially high compared to, let's say, I don't know, like Kubernetes, where, oh, like there's a supply chain attack, we were able to kind of swarm on it and get it, you know, sorted out within a day. So I think maybe that sort of thing probably seems fine. Unless, do folks have any other thoughts on that? About putting more details or keeping it at sort of this generic?
I think generic is good, like you were saying.
Okay. So for question number 5, when you refer to supply chain security within your organization approach, which of the following closely matches what you mean?
We should maybe put this question first, just so that we don't like prime people with the other stuff we're talking about before they answer it. But it looks fine.
Yeah. So so where would you put this?
I would just put it like maybe as like the first question or something, so that we don't like start listing tools and they're like, oh yeah, that's part of it too.
Yep, that makes sense. Yep, yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, cool. And then the last ones I think are pretty simple. It's like, hey, would you be interested in joining a pilot program to help provide recommendations or guidelines? So this is, some of the stuff that we're just also exploring with some folks like Cert Manager, some folks like obviously Kubernetes SIG release itself, and so on, just to say like, hey, like how open are folks to doing this? So let's kind of just, if does anybody have any objections to that question?
I think we probably have to add one on like the size of the project.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how we looking at this. So this seems like something that would probably also go down here or somewhere around here. I'll just put it here and we can organize it. So how large is the project? I I don't know how you it's bigger than a bread box. I don't know how folks
I think like number of maintainers and contributors
Yeah.
is one of them. I don't know how accurate line of codes can be. I don't think it's accurate.
Yeah, especially if you vendor code. It's like, oh, my project is 2 million lines of code, of which only 50 of them are owned by me. Yeah. I don't know. What do other folks think?
Maybe a number of users would be an okay metric. Sometimes hard to judge in open source projects though.
Yeah.
Can we get them to put in the number of clones and because they have that on the GitHub page, right? I think.
Yeah.
Inside.
So we could probably do
git clones and visitors to the page and then.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to think of like, because obviously stars just means how popular it is. It doesn't necessarily mean it could be like a 20-line shell script, but that just helps a lot of folks and has a lot.
We're at time.
Yeah. Oh, we're at time. Okay. So yeah, do we just want to say we'll do a little bit more cleanup, and by Thursday next week, the plan is to have this pushed out, or to have this at least sent over to CNCF to kind of turn into like to format and turn into a thing. All right, sounds good. All right, I'll see everybody next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.